Hi guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Jason White. This is my channel, Jason's Weird Reads, and this is the place where I like to talk about books, mostly horror books, and some fantasy and some science fiction. If that sounds like something you would like to take a journey with me on, then hit the subscribe button and comment, and we'll discuss some books. Alright, so I'm going to be grouping, I think, my reviews, because I think it's good to have a variety of reviews. I think that brings about more chance of people to jump in and watch review videos if you have like one or two or three. Not one, but two or three. And so I'm going to be doing two books here. This is my review of Girl on Fire by Gemma Amor and Later by Stephen King. That's two back-to-back reviews. I got my notes here on my nifty new laptop, so I'm just going to be reading from them, so please don't mind if I'm looking down a lot. So, Girl on Fire by Gemma Amor. The plot. Ruby Miller is a teenager trying to survive her abusive family. She buys herself a car. She gets a job, saves up, and buys herself a car. And something drastic kind of happens. I don't really want to spoil it because I think, honestly, this book is a lot of fun if you don't know what's going to go on exactly, but I need to discuss some of the details here. So because of the drastic situation she finds herself in, she learns that she can start fire. She can start fires with her mind. And so she decides, well, she doesn't decide to. She ends up using this ability to defend herself almost right away. And she kills some people. And so she uses her ability. She ends up using her ability to go on like a murderous rampage. But as I said, she can't help it at first. She keeps finding herself in situations where she has to defend herself. And as she goes along in her cross-country like journey, she finds herself killing a lot of people, and she slowly loses her ability to feel empathy for, actually, I guess it happens fairly quickly, but she loses her ability to feel empathy for the terrible things she's doing. She's finding that she's justifying the things that she's doing. And, you know, in a sense she has a right to, because there's a lot of people coming at her. But pretty soon, when people start leaving her alone, and law enforcement is trying to capture her, she, you know, let's just say that Gemma Amor puts Ruby into a few interesting situations where she doesn't have to kill. And you should read on to see whether or not she does. Let's get into the good about this novel. I don't really want to get too far, and I do this with my reviews because it's a personal decision, because I like to go in blind in reading books, and so I'll often skip like plot lines. I won't often read the synopsis on the back. I often skip the synopsis part, not always, but sometimes. In book reviews. I don't always watch book reviews either because, like I said, I like going into books blind. I usually like more so. I like seeing what the reader, the reviewer thought about it, whether they liked it or not, and why they liked it or not. So, anyways, that's neither here nor there. You can tell it's been a while since I've done this. Anyway, so the good. This book is very well written. There are parts that are very poetic in this story. The writing is just phenomenal. I did a little clip. I'll try to put it up here where I read a paragraph. I chopped out some parts so I could keep it under a minute because I was experimenting with the YouTube Shorts thing. And so it's clipped a bit, but you'll see a good example of her writing there. And the language it's not always poetic, but it's always like medicine. Bad medicine, I guess, considering the content, but it still feels, it's very pleasing for the brain to absorb. And I think I would read Gemma Amor write about her struggling to come up with a laundry list, a grocery list or something. I would read Gemma Amor write about the most mundane thing, because she would make it so that your brain wants to absorb her words. The characters all felt very real to me. They made, I think, realistic decisions, and especially Ruby. Ruby is the one we're following. One thing I liked about this book was the theme of people defending their actions, no matter how wrong it is. Because Ruby isn't the only one who finds herself making okay her decisions, self-justifying. There's other characters in this book who self-justify their evil actions, and so that's interesting. 'Cause people do that in real life. It doesn't matter what some people do; they'll justify it instead of admitting that they did something wrong. And that's something I think, honestly, we need to overcome as a human race, or we're going to get nowhere. And also, I loved how Gemma Amor was able to manipulate my own emotions regarding her main character, Ruby, because you first start off this book liking her and feeling empathy for her, but you grow slowly to kind of hate her, and yet you don't ever feel like you don't want to read about her. She's always fascinating and interesting to follow. And so I highly recommend this book just for the good alone. Moving into the bad, there's a change between, I think it's the first and second chapter, or at least the first and second parts. I'm not sure. It's been about a month since I read it. But there is a change in tone between that first part and moving into the middle of the story. It really felt jarring to me, because you start off with a story about a teenage girl suffering at the abuse of her parents. She's suffering, she's abused, and so that beginning really felt literary and artistic, and then you're very quickly thrown into the main character becoming like a supervillain action story. And that, like I said, that's very jarring. The one thing that saves it, though, is the one thing I praised in the good, and that's Gemma Amor's awesome writing skills. She basically takes your hand and says, okay, we're going from there to here. It's going to be a lot of fun from here on out, so let's go. And also, this is more of a nitpick, honestly. But apparently this is going to be a series. This is the first book or novella of a series. And I'm not too sure how I feel about that, because I really felt that this book would stand alone very well on its own as a it's very much commentary on humanity and how we treat each other. And I'm not too sure if it needs to be a series, honestly. Where it ended, it did kind of end on not really a cliffhanger. I think the story wraps up all on its own. It's very well done in that way, but I think it would just work better, honestly, as a standalone. I don't know how many more times I can say that. I guess I'm going to have to wait until book 2 comes out, and who knows, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm remembering a different book. I mean, that is possible. It's sad, but possible. Alright, so moving on to my second review, and that is Later by Stephen King. The plot. This story is told in first person by Jamie Conklin and follows him and his single mother as they try to survive the mean streets of New York. Well, it's actually not quite like that, but they do live in New York City. His mom is a literary agent, and so she they live in some, they're very, his mom is a very successful literary agent. I mean, they're in New York, right? So Jamie can see dead people. And before you start screaming, oh, that sounds like Sixth Sense with Bruce Willis, well, you're not wrong. Jamie, the character, even addresses this. I think he says the Sixth Sense. He mentions the Sixth Sense in that Bruce Willis movie. But although there is a similarity with a child who can see dead people, there is a difference. Stephen King created his own rules for this. I'm not going to get into them because it's fun to discover it for yourself. But he has his own rules, and he follows those rules pretty steadily throughout the whole story. So Jamie's mother, I think she's bisexual. She might be gay, but she finds a lover in a New York detective, a cop, and she becomes important to the story. Jamie's mother, because of some bad deals that she and her brother did, some bad business deals, mostly her brother, because her brother suffers from premature Alzheimer's disease. And so he's in an institute, but before he went in the institute, he made some really bad business investments and whatnot, and they lost pretty much all their money. And so in order to try to save themselves from going into complete and utter poverty or even homelessness. Okay, so there's a lot of financial issues going on. Her biggest client at the same time dies on her. And so this client, a writer who's writing a lot of, he's writing a series of books that are very popular. They're like $1 million deals, and of course, because she's his literary agent, she makes about 15% of his profits. So she's missing that money that from the books he's going to write, and of course, there's only one book left. And he was working on it, and he doesn't take notes. He's not like a person who plots a lot. It's all up here with this writer. And he dies at his desk. He has a heart attack while writing. He's only on like chapter 2 or 3. And so this is devastating because she was kind of relying on the advance, her chunk of the advance. So she employs her son, who can see dead people. They go to the place, because usually the spirit of the person who died sticks around the body for a couple of days. That's one of the rules. And so they're lucky, and they do see the author, and they get like pretty much the entire plot for the last book. And his mother, she writes it. She finishes off the series. And gets the advances. You know, it's kind of shady, but not really, because the actual advance money is going to the family. She doesn't take any credit for the writing of the novel. She just finishes it so she can get the advance, which is like $300,000 or something. It's quite a bit of money, and it saves them. But at the same time, Jamie's mother's girlfriend, she is slipping deeper and deeper into a corrupted cop sort of lifestyle, you could say. She's basically trafficking drugs for some bad people. And so one day, Jamie's mother finds a baggie full of really bad drugs, like heroin or cocaine or something like that, in her sweater pocket, and it was meant for trafficking. And so she gives her the boot, you're out of here, no more. So, because this corrupt detective knows about Jamie's abilities, because she learns about it, mostly when he dictates the notes of the writer who died to his mother, and she records it. She's there for that, and so she realizes that there's something real going on there. So she decides to use Jamie in a couple instances. And this is where all the problems, not the problems like, as in this is a bad book, but I mean the problems within the story, the plot. This is where the plot gets really thick. And because there is a serial bomber, and she uses Jamie to find out something about that serial bomber. I don't want to get too far into the plot because reasons. I already stated the reasons. All right, so The Good. This book was fast-paced, at least it was to me. It's very well written. Stephen King, you sometimes forget just how much of a master Stephen King is at writing. And he makes this book a lot of fun. At least I had a lot of fun reading it. The story has connections to Stephen King's multiverse, which I know is interesting to a lot of readers out there. So if you want to learn what those are, I highly suggest you read this book. I think, honestly, as well, this book would make a great entry point to any new Stephen King reader, because it's short, it's quick, and it's a lot of fun, but it has a lot of those Stephen King-isms in there. And as they read through the rest of Stephen King's books, they're going to connect the dots and be like, ah! So definitely, I recommend it for that. The story also reminds me a lot of a favorite of mine, Low Men in Yellow Coats from Hearts in Atlantis. Just has a similar sort of style. There's a character in this book that I haven't talked about. It was a professor, an old professor, English literature professor, that they were friends with, and they often, shared dinners with. Jamie's relationship with this old professor reminded me a lot of the relationship in Low Men in Yellow Coats. And it had all those feels in it. Maybe not as intensely as Low Men in Yellow Coats, but it was still there, and I really appreciated the reminder of that story. Because, like I said, it's one of my favorite Stephen King stories. And the first ending, Stephen King is known for not ending his books very well. I think one reason for this, he likes to over-explain everything, and he likes to wrap every little nugget up, which doesn't need to be done, I don't think. But the first ending, how the main issues or the problems that the characters have to solve within the plot, the way that's all wrapped up is great. It's very well done. All right, let's move into the bad. There are some, but not many. It feels like there's some plot devices that were used conveniently to help the story progress. But like I said, Stephen King's, he's a master at storytelling, and so it doesn't really come across as too bad. I mean, coincidences happen in real life, like there's, nobody's business. But sometimes every once in a while, there's a plot device, an ability a character has that just becomes convenient suddenly. And I find that if King has a weakness, that's definitely one of his weaknesses. And also after the first wrap up of the plot, you get a section at the very end that explains a few other things that happen, or a few other things about the main character, about your narrator, Jamie. And I don't know if it was necessary, honestly. First of all, it's weird. I mean, you're not expecting it, and I don't know, honestly, if it's necessary at all. I think the book would have survived just fine without it, because I think, honestly, it just confuses the reader. You're wondering why you're being told this. It's not necessary, but it's there, and it's fine. But I would have preferred maybe it not being there. I don't know why it's there, honestly. I don't know if it was just because King felt he had to wrap up every little loose end, or if maybe the publisher just wanted it fluffed up a bit to make it a more thick of a novella rather than shorter. I don't know. Usually publishers go the opposite way and try to get you to cut things, so I don't know. So those are my reviews. The verdict for both, I'm going to put at the same time here, because I recommend both. They're both fantastic reads. I put them together because I love them both so much. And if there is a connection between the two, it's is there some serious Firestarter vibes in Girl on Fire, which of course was written by Stephen King. But it doesn't feel like Stephen King's story at all. But having said that, it's still about a little girl, or not a little girl, but a teenage girl who can, start fires with her mind. So I recommend both. I think that you guys will love both. Definitely go check them out and come back here if you've read them. Let me know what you thought of them. If you haven't read them, come back and let me know what you thought of them. All right, so that's it. Thank you for watching, especially if you made it this far. Please keep being safe out there. Keep being kind to one another. Because I think, especially Girl on Fire, if it teaches anything, is that kindness is much more needed in this world. And keep being creative, and I'll catch you guys in the next bookish video.